it's always lovely to be back in India. It's the home of my ancestors, and just here there's a Chadha Chonk. So it's super good. And my family's here, a lot of my lovely family's here. So I feel very, very at home in India. And especially Bombay. I've spent so much time here. I've shot movies here. So it's a home from home for me.
So this time particularly, I think you wanted to try here, or you're just here for a very short amount of time?
I'm here in Mumbai to have our premiere for Christmas Karma. And then I've been asked to go to Bangalore to meet with Sri Ravi Shankar. Gurudev wants to see the film. And then we're going to talk about karma after. And then I go to Delhi and meet some family. I have a 95-year-old aunt in Delhi. And so I'm very excited to go and spend some time with her.
As you just mentioned, your film Christmas Karma is about to release in 2 weeks now. So what is the core message for the Indian audience here?
The film is adapted from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. But the message of the film is completely universal. And for me, he doesn't know this, Charles Dickens, but it is the same message as Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Ek Onkar. This is what Charles Dickens was saying. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. We are all connected. And we learnt that during the whole COVID period, how connected we all were, as a human race. So that's number one. The second thing is what Scrooge learns in the film. He loves to hoard money, he's a very rich guy. But when you look at his past and you realize why he's like he is, because he struggled with being a displaced person, with coming to Britain as a refugee, being in a hostile environment. So he turned to money because he thought that would help him, that would give him status, that would make him, protect him from racism. But what he learns in the end to feel really human is to give. And of course, that's seva, So when we give and we do seva, that's our purpose in life, particularly as a Sikh. That's what we do. But it's also a very Indian concept, So in many ways, A Christmas Carol was made to be an Indian film because it carries those values of redemption, of helping others who, through various circumstances, end up being, in these sad situations, but also how that trauma as a child carries with you. And so unless your karma is right, unless you live your life well, you don't really feel happy in life. I think all this is a very Indian concept.
Very true, very true. And you also discussed very beautifully the dislocation of Indian diaspora from Africa to different part of the world. It's such an important concept. I'm sure it comes from a very personal space and personal family pain.
Yes. So my Scrooge, what you learn, Mr. Sood, played by Kunal Nair, is that the reason he's so mean is because he came to Britain from Uganda in 1972 when Idi Amin, as a way of getting back at the British, he expelled all the Indians, all the Asians from Uganda, and some who had British passports ended up in Britain as refugees. That this is a true story. Many people went through this. And in particular, this person we knew went through this. And it all happened during Christmas time. And his father died of a heartbreak, in the refugee center. And he used to come to our house at Christmas. And from a young age, we had celebrated Christmas because if you grow up in England, that's what everyone does. So he would come to our house, see the Christmas tree, see us having the lunch, and he'd say, "What are you all doing? Why are you trying to be white?" And we'd say, no, this is our tradition. This is what we do. We sit and watch the Queen. And so he could never get his head around it. And he was always very grinchy in the corner of the room. So for me, there was this idea that to look at him as a character, and so it's very real, that story. But at the same time, even in my own family, there's been a lot of migration and movement, and I carry that with me. My grandparents were in partition, my ancestral home is Rawalpindi and Jhelum. They came as refugees to India. And then my other grandparents went to Africa. And then my parents were born in Africa, came to Britain. I was born in Kenya, but, lived in Britain since a baby. So we kind of carry all that with us, so we know what it's like instinctively to go from one country to another. And sometimes there's a lot of pain and struggle, but then also there's lots to celebrate. So in my films, I try and show both sides, but that is a very unique perspective I have. And other NRIs or other people who have this displacement in their families completely understand and get where I'm coming from. But it's important to tell these stories because especially in Britain, it's very hard for people like me to get to make these films and tell our stories. It's actually got harder, I have to say. But unless we tell these stories, then no one knows our history,
You said it became very hard to tell the story right now. Why so?
I think partly the industry has changed. Since the streaming platforms came in, I think independent cinema has really shrunk. It's very hard to get people to come out to go to the cinema. And so a lot of independent filmmakers here in India and everywhere, America, Britain, it's kind of the same, the dynamics have changed of cinema. But it's always been hard for someone like me to tell my stories, because most people who finance these films come from a different perspective. They don't share my perspective. So I do have to kind of fight hard to get these made. But I was very lucky on Christmas Karma that I had Indian backing. Wonderful woman, Anushka Shah from Civic Studios. They came in very quickly to support me. And then Sunil Sheth, who is my retired lawyer, he felt very bad that I was struggling, and he said to his friends that she's given us so much pleasure, and he said they all put their hands in their pockets, formed a consortium, and they also then supported me in making this film. So ironically, it's a Christmas film set in London, but it has a lot of Indian backing and support.
How do you see Kunal in this as a Scrooge? Because we have different kind of image in our heads. So
yes.
How do you deal about it?
Well, when I first met Kunal, I just met him socially, and there was something about him that I liked a lot. He's a complete opposite to the character that he plays on Big Bang Theory. And then when I was writing this, I was thinking about him, and then I met him for lunch because he's in his 40s now, so he's not that kid, right? And I said, look, I want you to play this character of Scrooge, And he was like, are you mad? What? How? I can't play an old guy, Can't you give me like a James Bond type sexy kind of guy? And the more I spoke to him, the more I knew that he was correct, because he has this melancholy air about him, and he also is, born in England, lived in Delhi, lives in the US, travels around all the time. So he has this diaspora feeling. But more than that, I think that he's just a super actor. And no one will believe, I think, that this is the same guy from that TV show. When you watch it, you just won't believe it. Such an amazing performance.
I could not recognize him in the beginning. I was like, is it Kunal? He's like that.
Yeah.
You have such an ensemble cast. It comes from a very different circles of acting. So how was, and who was the most difficult to cast?
Wow, that's interesting. I become very Indian when it comes to casting, because I just say, jisme takdeer hai, they get the part. But you can come with all these ideas, who you want, But at the end of the day, the right person will always take that role. And then you can't imagine anyone else in that role. And so with Eva had made a directorial debut. She asked me to present her film for an Academy screening and do a question and answer with her. And I said, of course, I'd love to support you. After we were having dinner, and she said, what are you working on? I'd love to work with you. And then I told her about Christmas Karma, and she went, hello, I'm Mexican-American. We own ghosts, Day of the Dead. That's what we do. And so I went, oh my God, I didn't even think of that, to have a Mexican-American ghost. And she's absolutely right. And so that's how she came to be in the project. You know, like with everyone, there's this sort of really interesting story, but a lot of people feel, you know, very warm towards me, and they've enjoyed my work. So, you know, when I approach them, you know, it's always, you know, I get a lot of respect, and that's a wonderful thing. And hence I end up with such a beautiful cast.
And your cameo was accidental or it was planned?
My what, sorry?
Your cameo.
Oh, my cameo. Well, shooting a Christmas Bhangra dance sequence, I can't understand how anyone would be able to just sit on the sidelines. I mean, that day was such a great day, and everyone was on such a high shooting that scene, and I couldn't help but just get in there. I had to get in there. So yes, I do have a cameo, and I'm dancing.
And Priyanka Chopra, she sang a song for you. And
yes.
it was such a beautiful song and a lovely version of it. So how you convinced her?
So I had lunch with the George Michael estate, and they said, what are you doing now? I said, I'm doing a Christmas film. And they said, well, why didn't you use Last Christmas? And I said, well, I don't have £250,000 to give you. And they said, well, if you're nice, we'll give it to you. And why don't you do a Bollywood version? And I was like, what? So it was their idea. They said George Michael would love it. Please do it. So then once they said that, I thought, okay, I have to call my friend. So Priyanka's supported me for so long and been such a great supporter of all NRIs, you know, particularly Punjabis and particularly women. So I called her and she said, She said, are you mad, Gurinder? No, I can't. I'm not a singer anymore. I'm in a different space. And I said, look, it'll be a laugh. It's at the end of the film. It's the fun end titles. We're all singing along. My dog will be there. I'll be there. And then she kind of said, you know what? I'll do it to support you. So she came in. Then I called Anushka Shankar. I said, please come and do the background, the music, you know. And Anushka then ended up doing this most amazing musical version of Last Christmas, you know, that supported Priyanka. And somehow we ended up with this beautiful, magical version that I hope George Michael likes. But it's very easy on the ear. It's very calming and gets you into the Christmas spirit. A lot of Goras are loving it, even though they don't know they know the words from George Michael, but it's a very calming, easygoing Christmas song. And it's about time we had our own Christmas songs, right? And so I'm super happy with the Priyanka Chopra's Last Christmas, but also my Christmas Bhangra song with Jassi Sidhu and Malkeet Singh.
It is such a beautiful, fun song.
Yeah.
The old energy of the spirit of the film. Can we see a collaboration between you and Priyanka together in a film, something like that? Are you planning? Because you would love that. You two are doing amazing.
I would love to do that too. And there are definitely plans. You know, PC and I have met a few times. There's certainly stories that she has told me about. There's certainly stories that I have. And so, yeah, I mean, I would love to find the right thing for her. I think she's an incredible actress. I really do. I'm so pleased she's doing the films in the South right now. I thought Barfi, her role in Barfi was just remarkable. She's done many good roles, but that I thought was just remarkable as an actress. So I think she's also, you know, it's been interesting watching her in the West. And, you know, it's not easy to go from being at the top here and then go there where nobody knows who you are, and to do all the work to build up your career in the West, whilst you've been a big star here. So I really take my hat off to her. She's done incredibly well and has so much respect, from people in the West. And she's also a fellow Punjabi, and, that's a big part of our friendship, And she has the most beautiful daughter. I can't even tell you. Little Malti Marie is just, she's just gorgeous. Yeah, I just want to eat her. She's so beautiful and bubbly and just so much fun. Oh, so seeing Priyanka as a mother is a wonderful thing as well. I've spent time with her, at home with her, with the baby, going out for lunch with all of them. And, it's a whole different side, that people don't get to see. But it's wonderful to see her as a mother. Wonderful.
Your connection with me is from Bennett like Beckham.
Yeah.
That has been a different kind of recognition altogether in the entire world. Now you're coming up with this second part.
Yeah.
You have so much expectation. How you're handling that kind of expectation and love?
It's a lot of pressure. I mean, Bend Like Beckham, everywhere I go, people are just always going on about that film. And all kinds of people in all countries around the world. So it's a wonderful thing to have done that. And I never wanted to go back and revisit the story because I didn't think I could do anything better. But it's been amazing to see how much we've been part of the growth of women's football. The entire England team of the Lionesses, they all said they got into playing football after watching Bend It Like Beckham. Same with the US champions. They watched the film, got into it. So because we've been part of that story, it felt like, okay, this could be a good time now to go back and revisit our characters. So I'm doing that and I'm taking my time. I just need to make sure it's a great story. But I have a fantastic couple of different ideas that I'm super excited about.
We have been seeing your growth and you've been inspiring so many people in the field of filmmaking from here. How do you see, and you're one of the very few filmmakers who got the Indian diaspora storytelling right, where we have a discussion that they put the Indian. So do you put that such an extra effort to understand the Indian culture and bring authenticity in your film?
Thank you. I think as a director, your films are really an extension of you, and your personality and what you are concerned about in life, your worldview. And because mine is such a unique perspective, I'm part of the Indian diaspora, I'm very Indian, very Punjabi in many ways, but I also have an English side, hence Christmas, So I love to combine cultural forces, and I love to show how assimilation really works for me, when I came here, I started off by eating it, pav bhaji, pani puri, thepla, everything. Now I'm back to plain eggs and toast because it was too much. Now I'm like, okay, I've done that. Now I need to just have some plain English food. So I have to balance both sides, I'm not used to everything. So I feel like, sometimes when I'm in India, I feel very English. When I'm in England, I feel very Indian. And this is a wonderful thing because I have the best of all worlds. My husband's American, Japanese American. I have all that side as well when I go to America with my in-laws, my Japanese in-laws, And so I think that for me, it's a blessing to be able to move fluidly between different cultures and acknowledge all kinds of people and all kinds of emotions, and especially in the holiday period of Christmas, but because actually it's a connective thing. And I think even here I'm seeing Christmas trees everywhere. We all come together on these holidays, and even like Diwali now, it used to be such a small thing in England. My mum would put a few candles out, and that was it. Now it's a big thing, all kinds of stores, Claridge's, all kinds of hotels everywhere celebrates Diwali, have big Diwali parties. We have Diwali sales in shops, and, it's come a long way. So culture is moving, evolving all the time. I'm part of it. We're all part of it. I just like to document my story and my perspective of the Indian diaspora.